Hey y'all, Matt here from RetroOnly.com. Today I'm going to be answering another question about the Nintendo Switch. The question I'm going to be covering today is, why is the Nintendo Switch always sold out? If you'd attempted to get a Switch in stores anytime in the last few years, you know it's incredibly difficult, especially if it's around the holiday time. It's super hard to find a Switch console at actual MSRP. Now you can obviously find them on eBay for hundreds of dollars more than what those people paid for them, and I won't go into that. But why are they always sold out? And is there any way where you can try and get one where they're not sold out, where you can get one if you've been keeping your eye out for one, can't seem to come across one? So that's what this video is about. Before we hop into that, please be sure to hit that like button and then also subscribe to our channel. It really does help us as a channel out a lot, and it also allows other people who have this exact same question to see this video more, so it helps those people out as well. So let's go ahead and hop into answering this question about the Nintendo Switch. So why is the Nintendo Switch always seem to be sold out? That's the question that I'm going to be covering in this video. There's really three basic reasons that the Nintendo Switch is always sold out. The first reason is that Nintendo simply does not make enough supply. That is true of almost all of their gaming systems, I want to say since ever. Now I know that's not true. Sometimes there's an abundance of Nintendo gaming systems. But as far back as I can remember, there was always an issue getting a hold of a Nintendo console. And that's simply because Nintendo doesn't produce an abundance of these consoles. A few years back, do you remember trying to get an NES Classic or an SNES Classic? It was virtually impossible. Why was that? Nintendo simply did not make enough supply to meet the demand that was out there for those consoles. Why? Nintendo always does this. For me personally, I don't really understand it. It would make far more sense for Nintendo to produce as many Switches as they could and simply allow anyone to get their hands on them without having to go through resellers. But Nintendo feels like it creates more demand on the market. The scarcity causes people to want their consoles more, those sorts of things. But in my opinion, Nintendo's missing out on a good chunk of money, especially with the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. I know many people who wanted one and never got one because Nintendo simply didn't produce enough, and then they stopped producing them altogether. So that's the first reason why it's hard to get a hold of a Switch, why they're almost always sold out everywhere. Second reason is scalpers, or I'm sure as they prefer to be called, resellers. Now, what are these people doing? They are buying the Switches up at MSRP and then reselling them. This is why, especially around the holiday times, it is virtually impossible to find a Switch at MSRP at places like Best Buy, Walmart, Target, or even Amazon. Around the holidays, it's almost impossible to get a Switch because they are sold out, because resellers know once they sell out, because they almost always sell out because Nintendo doesn't produce enough, as I mentioned earlier, then the prices will go up and people will pay more. It's just like any other game console that there's a shortage of. Those scalpers or resellers will go in and they'll buy up all of the quantity that's available and then resell it at a few $100s more, taking advantage of people whose children want them for Christmas or for their birthday or those sorts of things. That's the second reason why the Nintendo Switch is sold out. You've got hundreds or thousands of people all across the United States, or maybe even all across the world, I only know for sure in the United States, buying up these consoles as soon as they become available, and then they're sold back out, and then those people who bought them up are able to jack up the price and resell them for a much higher price. That's the second reason why they are always sold out. The third reason why the Switches have been sold out for a considerable period of time and why it's so hard to get a hold of one is simply they're popular. If you want to go right now and buy an Xbox One, the previous generation of Xbox, or if you want to go back even further and buy an Xbox, you can easily do so. Why? Because there's an abundance of them on the market. Now, you probably won't find them new, but you can find them for relatively cheap. The same thing with PlayStation. If you go back and try and get a PlayStation 4, you won't have any issues buying those because it's the older models. If you go back a little bit further, buy a PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 2, you won't have problems finding those either. However, Nintendo with the Switch, they only put consoles out much more rarely than Xbox does, than PlayStation does. And so since it's much more rare, the exact same console will continue for many, many, many years. And so you will not be able to go back and find them because they're simply popular. People like Nintendo consoles because people like Nintendo games. They like being able to play Yoshi. They like being able to play Mario. They like being able to play the other similar games, Mario Party or Mario Kart or whatever it happens to be, on their console that they're not able to play on PlayStation or play on Xbox. The Nintendo Switches are popular because of that. Now, it's also partly because of the unique niche that the Nintendo Switch fits in that is a handheld console and also a dockable console that you can put on your TV. So that makes it also a little bit unique when compared to the PlayStation and the Xbox. But really it comes down to people like to play their Nintendos because of the games that can come with them that aren't on other consoles. So those three main reasons are why Nintendos seem to be sold out everywhere. Now, how can you get one if you haven't been able to find one? If you've been looking and looking and looking and haven't been able to come across a Nintendo, what can you do? There are a couple of things that you can do. One, there's a website called brickseek.com. This is as of this recording. In the future, this might change, but as of now, it's 100% free to use. And what you can do is you can type in the SKU for a specific item. So say for the Switch, Animal Crossing Edition, or for the original Switch. And you can type it in and it will show you if there are any available in stores near you. And you can check that regularly. You can do that once a week or once a month or even every couple days whenever you have the time. And look and see, is there anything near me that's available for the Switch? The second thing that you can do is keep your eyes out on Amazon. Keep your eyes out online on places like that. The places like that will restock every now and again. For example, I got this Switch right before the holiday season, and I was able to do so because I was keeping my eye on Amazon, and all of a sudden, boom, I noticed that Switches dropped into stock at MSRP price, $299. And what did I do? Pulled the trigger, bought it, and that's how I got this Switch. Within a few hours or days, I'm not exactly sure, I checked back in, I think it was about 2 days later, and they were completely sold out again. So you can get lucky, especially at bigger stores like online, like Amazon, where they'll get in a big shipment. They won't sell out necessarily immediately, but they will sell out pretty quick. So those are the two main ways. Then the third way I do want to mention is you can buy used. Now, I don't recommend this simply because the Switch really hasn't gone down in price used. So you'll pay relatively close to retail price even for a used Switch. So for most people, it's not worth buying used. However, if you need one, you can't find one anywhere, or you really, really want one for whatever reason, buying used can work as well. You can find used ones for relatively close to the same price as new ones, but sometimes you'll get maybe a couple of controllers thrown in, whether the generic or whether the Pro. Maybe you'll get a couple of random games thrown in as well for the exact same MSRP. But if you do buy used, make sure it's the new generation, not the first generation, as the first generation had a lot of glitch issues. Also had a lot of battery issues. The batteries didn't last as long, those sorts of things. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. Again, my name is Matt. I'm from vittually.com. Have a great day.